So, hello everyone. It's nice to see that so many of you returned for the second day after the brutal slashing by Mr. Ahonen yesterday about the app scene and how we should all do only SMS. So, my name is Elias Pietilä. I'm a co-founder of Qvik, which is an iPhone and Android development and design company. Today's presentation was, in an ideal world, supposed to be called How to Monetize 10 Million Downloads, but it's based on a true story. So let's add the not. So how not to monetize 10 million downloads. Now that we added the not, let's get rid of all that money. I'm still going to tell you how to succeed. It's just been a learning process over the last couple of years. And besides, these days, we all know how to make money. We make the pig green and add an angry bird. And you know, monetization is only half of the challenge on the App Store. The other part is to ship a lot of copies. So I'm going to touch on that as well. So the reason why I'm talking here is that I made a game in early 2009. It was called Wooden Labyrinth 3D. It's on the iPhone. It shipped over 10 million copies. It won the Apple Design Award in 2009. And actually today, this exact day, it starts shipping preloaded on Nokia Sound in the United States, which is pretty cool. So, I mean, looking at the numbers, I did something right. I mean, I got 10 million downloads. So let's start with that. How do we get a lot of downloads? So I'm going to give you two tips. The first tip is dead simple. Make your application dead simple. I mean, you're thinking of your next big app. It's way too complicated to users. You should strip it down to the core use case and make it brilliant. You can check out, examples from the top of the app lists, app stores. I got a great example right here, Shazam. You tap on one button, magic happens. You get the song playing. So, I mean, just go for instant gratification, because the average attention span of the mobile user is like a 5-year-old on speed. They won't use your application for more than 2 seconds till they decide whether it's worth for them to use it or not. So the second point is to get personal with your customer base. To ship 10 million copies, you only need a handful of fans, true fans that spread the religion around. So you should really go to the place where these guys hang around, the forums, the channels, the blogs, and go there personally with your own name and talk to these guys. They love the attention, and then they will spread the word for you. Okay, so now you got a lot of apps out there. How do you make money? Some of you smart guys might have figured out that you can actually make money by selling applications for money. That's kind of boring, because that worked out for me as well. Now I'm more interested in how to make money after the application is in the user's hand. And this is where I kind of failed. So there's 3 ways to do it. The first one is the obvious one, and which all of you in broadcasting industry and everywhere else is familiar with, which is ads. So I had millions of downloads, a lot of users every day, hundreds of thousands. So I plastered the game with ads. And these were like, full screen ads every couple of levels, block your gameplay. I showed over 100 million ads in the game. And people clicked on these ads over 1 million times. And it only netted me about 24,000 euro in revenue. And that's pretty pathetic. I mean, if you think about a sustainable business model, that's not going to carry you. This is for 2 years of ads. And I mean, the numbers for the impressions, they're pretty good for a small game like that. I mean, it's not Angry Birds, but it's okay. So I really don't encourage people to build their business case solely on ads, especially for these services that, one size fits all, like iAds or AdMob or MobClicks. The money isn't there. And the fact is that the app business is getting so big that it just never can be monetized based on solely ads. We need additional revenue streams. One of those is in-app purchases. So you sell stuff within the application. I did that. So I offered a upgrade to full version within the application. And my conversion rate is like the smallest ever. It's 0.28%. People are telling that 10% of the people will buy premium content within your application. I would say bullshit, but I'm not. The problem with me is that I hate in-app purchases. I would never do that myself. I wouldn't buy anything in a game because I hate that. I want to pay for the game up front, enjoy it as much as I can. So the way I built my in-app purchase thing is what was, good for me. It wasn't good for the audience because the audience is, these are the guys who spend money on premium SMS. I never would. So, I mean, you have to play this by the numbers. Don't create the business model that would work for you, but create a business model that works for your sort of customer base. What's good about in-app purchases, though, and this is where the real money is that with this you can build the customer relationship and then charge money for it. Whereas when you build a paid application up front, the purchase decision has to be made on the spot. So you don't have time to build the trust of the consumer. Okay, and let's be honest, I mean, half the applications, or more, don't do enough revenue to actually be successful. So a good application is also an investment in the company image and in the future where the smartphones become more mainstream. So, I mean, you should always value the brand value of the application as well, to some extent. I mean, if you figure what the value of a wooden labyrinth game would be the brio, which actually makes those wooden labyrinths, and makes those wooden trains, and makes those wooden whatever that people might buy based on this game, I mean, that would definitely be more than 24,000, those 100 million ad impressions. And to add to the reason why selling paid application is boring, I have some statistics here about sales. I did a bunch of these. So the application is usually going for $3. I dropped it to a third of the price, so 99 cents. And the sales, just by magic, every time, triple. So I make the same exact revenue. But this has regional differences. So I mean, if you look at the countries, in the United States, the sales only double, so I'm making a net loss. But in Europe, in Germany, the sales go up 6 times, and in Italy, 20 times. I mean, this just goes over and over every time. And this just goes to show that some of the countries are poor or stingy. So, I mean, but the problem with current app stores is that you can set a universal price point. You can't segment based on location. This is just something to keep in mind that, isn't there yet. And in closing, when you now go and build your own applications, I would advise with 3 don'ts. So don't go white label. You will become part of the gray mass. You will not stand out in the App Store with a white label product. Don't build an app for yourself. Build an app for your market, your audience, because they are probably stupid. They spend money in a different way than you do, and they can use a product only if it has 1 button on it. A big caricature, but still. And don't go to an ad agency because they are clueless about the app scene. I mean, they come to us and we're like, we have to show them the ropes. So thank you, and I think with this advice you can make the pigs fly. So it's not only the birds these days. Thank you.
Andrew, why don't you then tell us a little bit about Shazam's perspective? Thanks.
Right now? Okay. All right, so I'm here to not talk about Shazam, but I will set the scene. Shazam has over 100 million users. This is our growth curve. So you can be successful in the app economy. And whilst this topic was entitled How to Be Successful in the App Store, I'm going to talk more generically about strategies for app publishing. So I've got 5 points that I'm going to go through very, very quickly, just in the interest of time, and just talk to each point. So let's start with the app itself, the proposition. a little bit what Elias was saying. I think the first thing, before you rush into building an app, I'd encourage everybody to go and talk to the people that run the app stores, whether that's a mobile phone operator, whether it's a handset manufacturer. I would go and talk to the product teams and actually ask them, how are they viewing these categories where the usage is trending towards? This chart here shows that people have moved away, as most of us know, they've moved away from voice and mail, and the new segment, this is the market share for time on a phone in January of this year. You can see how much time is now being spent on apps themselves, and that top green piece is a web version of your internet site, so it's somebody using a browser on a mobile phone. But you can see here, in terms of new activity, 40 minutes are spent on average per user now on apps. And so the question is, what is the landscape in those categories? So is it location-based services? Is it games? Is it music? Is it entertainment? Check-in apps for TV shows? And then what is a competitive landscape? And if you commit to building out a compelling proposition, are you going to get the support of the App Store providers to promote this? Is it something that they see as relevant? And are you actually going to get their attention and help with the indexing in the listings? Which platform? So this chart's a little bit complex. It basically shows, on the left-hand side, it shows the number of devices per mobile operating system, and on the right-hand side, it shows the number of apps that are downloaded on a daily basis. So if you look at, let's just look at the number of apps downloaded. So my first thought here is I'm looking at the iPhone and I'm thinking, wow, there's 17 million apps downloaded every day on the iPhone. I think I better make sure that I publish on the iPhone first of all, because clearly that's the biggest platform for participation from consumers. But if you look at the chart the other way around and you say, well, with Symbian devices, there's over 1 billion Symbian devices in the world, and yet there's only 100 million, trending towards 200 million iPhones, maybe I might be better off thinking about a platform that's not iPhone or Android right now, because if you look at the ratio of other publishers and how many apps you're competing against to get attention, you may be better served going to something that's less competitive, like a Symbian, like a Java, like a Brew platform. So it's a consideration, and I would just encourage you to spend time thinking about what your strategy is for platforms. One of the reasons why Shazam has 100 million users is because we're across every platform, so it's slightly easier for us. But I think today my guidance would be you either go ubiquitous and you go cross-platform as a strategy, and if you're a single app company like Shazam, that's probably your best strategy of building scale in your businesses. But if you're going to build multiple applications around a single platform, like you're a games publisher, for example, then you might be better off making a choice around iPhone or Android or one specific platform. Devices. So we move beyond the mobile phone and we think about these great new devices. This chart here shows the sales rates for the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad in the first 3 quarters. So if you look at that very small green line, we were all blown away when the iPod launched and we thought, wow, phenomenal device. When the iPhone launched, the red section here, we thought, this is a great new platform that we need to be on. We need to build apps. It's part of our digital publishing strategy. It's about driving audience engagement. Look how fast the iPad has dwarfed those other 2 devices in terms of sell-through rate. And it's not a no-cost decision. I mean, to be really successful on each one of these platforms, or to be successful on any platform, you need to think about the user interface and the user experience based on the device capabilities. It's no good porting what you have on the web to a mobile phone. You have to think about, it's a very small navigation, it's limited attention span for users. It has to be different, and that's certainly part of our strategy. We built a different user interface, a different user experience for the iPad. We thought that was more about media consumption than it was about discovery. To be clear on your device strategy as to whether you're a single device or multiple devices is an important question to get right. Business models. So these are changing very, very rapidly. This is one company which has the same investor as Shazam. This is from the iFund that was set up by Kleiner Perkins. This is one of their portfolio companies. I'm not going to name who they are. But this is the change in their revenue composition over a 12-month period. So in 2009, you can see here the majority of their revenues were from charging people to pay for the application. They completely did away with that and went free. And if you look at 2010, so 12 months later, you can see the blend here has shifted towards advertising and virtual goods.
Did the revenue go up?
And the revenue went up significantly. That's an important data. These are not proportional circles. You know, I think a lot of us can spend many months talking about what our pricing strategy is going to be. These guys just went for it and succeeded in a very, very big way. So just be cognizant of where the shift and share of wallet is moving to over time. Go-to-market strategy. So if you identify with Shazam, one of the things we've done here is try and encourage our partners to spend their money on promoting our application. But in the context of yourselves, our advice would be to try and understand what the objectives are of the people who have these large marketing budgets. For us, it's mainly mobile phone companies and device manufacturers. And mobile phone companies, at the end of the day, are trying to sell a voice tariff, and device manufacturers are trying to sell you the handset. And so we do things to motivate them. We would integrate into their music store, for example. We will try and build some features on our product roadmap that are important to the next Samsung device that's running a big TV campaign right now. So again, it's all about dialogue with the partners ahead of time, thinking about how you motivate them to act on your behalf. And the last point is to be really clear on what your long-term strategy is for your business and what your core strategic objectives are. Music for Shazam has been a great way of building an audience. We have these 100 million people with a capability sitting on the phone, but in the context of this conference, the focus for us right now is encouraging people to Shazam TV shows and, most importantly, television adverts. We're trying to support the broadcasters by getting people in real time not to DVR and fast forward through the adverts, to build compelling user experiences that get people to watch the show. But also for the advertiser, we're trying to extend engagement and give them a bigger ROI on their ad dollars. And for us, if you look at market opportunity, that's a $60 billion market opportunity in North America last year for television advertising spend. If you look at music, which is our heritage, music's worth about $17 billion worldwide for recorded music and is in decline. So we've used one strategy to build a huge audience. We're not giving up on music anytime soon, but we are pivoting into a different market sector, same app on the phone, same install base of audience, but now this adds real value to the broadcast community because we have 40 million people in America that have this capability sitting on a coffee table that they can just pick up. So your long-term strategy also influences your short-term strategy. So that is that's our last point in terms of encouraging you to think about your app strategy.
Cool.
Good luck.
Thank you for that. You can pick up a mic, each of you. And, okay, so we'll have a few questions here. My first question is this. Is it necessary for every company to build an app, or should one focus first on having an HTML5 compliant web experience, which would be accessible by most of these devices?
Well, since we're more in the business of building applications for companies, we say you need an application. No, I really think the first step is to make the website compatible with the mobiles. That's a necessity, but you shouldn't sort of mix that with application. It's just a totally different thing.
Okay, so
the user experience on the application can be so much more than on the web page.
Okay, so if you're going to make an app, you've got to make it distinctly different from what you would do with a web page. That's one piece of advice.
Yeah.
So I disagree with that. So that's just a label in our minds. I mean, the definition of an app for us is something that's resident on the device itself. It's installed. Mm-hmm. But we do think the world's shifting towards web browsing. The browsers are getting better, and therefore you can render part of the experience that traditionally you'd have had to download onto the device via web pages. And on Shazam, it's pretty seamless. You wouldn't necessarily know what is local on the device and what was actually going out and touching a server to bring back content. And the only important thing about web publishing on mobile is that you need to determine what you have to cache as part of the core use case, because when somebody goes off network, let's say they go into a tube station on an underground, if you want them to carry on the experience, then obviously you need to cache things locally on the device.
It's a huge issue with iPad apps that I've noticed. Most of the magazine apps on the iPad don't work if you don't have Wi-Fi or a 3G connection, and they're useless. And so if you're on an airplane, for instance, half the magazines that you thought you bought, you can't get access to. This seems like a distinct disadvantage.
Yeah, but I mean, I think for the smart publishers that are really thinking about the user, they will acknowledge that mobile can lose the connectivity, and
Right.
so they'll cater for that.
But the limitations of HTML, totally browser-based applications, just websites, the limitations of caching, the amounts that you can do, compared to having your own SQL running on there, in these complicated, especially magazines, if you're caching whole magazines, they can be, tens of megabytes of data. So, I mean, in those cases, the application is just, you have to do that, really, if you want to have that cached experience that you can, continue wirelessly.
Yeah, so we're an advocate of building applications, but also acknowledging that the world is shifting towards web-based publishing. And we like that because on Christmas Day, you can paint your wallpaper red and put snowflakes on it, and it's a real-time update. So it complements the downloads and the need to have something local versus real-time publishing.
But then again, with applications, we've done one application ever. We've done tens of applications that didn't connect to the server side. So it's just having more control over the communication with the servers. So of course there's still the real-time element, so you can push content into the applications. That's a definite thing that you need to do. So trying to bypass, of course, the waiting times of the review process and so forth. So you need to build an application that is dynamic in that way.
So just for the benefit of the audience, that last part that you talked about, you're really referring to there the submission process into the App Store and the certification process,
True.
all of which takes a little bit of time. So if a company is in a rush to get an application out for some event, let's say some timely event that's going to be on television, you really need to pre-think that or develop an application that can be customized on the fly and thereby updated because it's networked, it's connected to the
Then
network.
again, if you're talking about TV, we've had a couple of instances where we need a review process done by tomorrow. And
Does it happen? I mean, is that
it
possible?
does happen. It does happen.
What do you do? How do you do that? I mean, what do you call somebody at Apple?
You send them a message, and then they're like, okay, this is your last time that you're ever going to have this happen. Don't do this ever again, and then we do it again.
And you can do that because you've had 10 million downloads.
I don't think it really, it matters more that what the sort of the event is and how much Apple can gain from the fact that it is timely release. So if you're doing a big press event or something like that, then they're more likely to actually abide by your request.
But typically that's a bad strategy, I would say.
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't do that too much.
Okay, what's the right strategy for getting an app in the App Store, featured prominently, maybe featured by Apple or some other means of featuring it?
It's very simple. You need to get a meeting with somebody on the team and get sponsored into the right people that can really influence this. They're not going to go away from the meeting thinking they've been sold on your app. What they are going to do is give you the guidance, which is think about it in this way or that way. So Apple's very clear. Build a great app and we will promote it. It's as simple as that. So the onus is on you to understand what's going to be really compelling to users. There is always an underlying theme with a lot of these platforms, which is ultimately they want to choose apps that also showcase the capabilities of the platform, particularly when there's a new release and you've got Steve Jobs on stage or the new version of Android's coming out.
We had a good example of that with Mondadori Digital just a minute ago.
Yeah, if you're going to do something on near-field communication in the next few months, the chances are you're going to get featured. Right. So you need to kind of read the beta releases and the notes that are being put in the public domain. They'll give you a lot of guidance. But ultimately, you can't do that just for a one shot at the time of the new platform being launched. And it reverts back to basics of build a very compelling app.
And so if this was to your point, look at what's in the store already. If you're making the 12th cookbook application, or let's say the 120th cookbook application, it's unlikely to be featured by Apple if it has the same exact features as 10 other things.
Exactly. And there's one point in one Labyrinth about that. Of course, it wasn't the first Labyrinth type of game. It was by far the best at that time. And even though it won the Apple Design Award, which is a huge honor, it never got featured on the iTunes App Store, which is because we've had a lot of our other applications, featured there.
Why do you think that was the case?
I think the problem is that the original Labyrinth game was by Illusion Labs, which sort of hold a stranglehold on the Apple guys that said this ain't going to get featured. Okay, they didn't want to ruin that relationship. So
how do you think they did that? I mean, back in the day when we were selling mobile applications to carriers, when carriers mattered. You would have to do something for the carrier. It might mean take out a full-page ad in the Sunday newspaper. You'd have to really show them something significant. Is that possible with Apple? I mean, can you basically bribe your way into featured placement?
You cannot.
That's what I thought. So how does this company, your competitor, how do they block you that way?
I don't know, but you know, the game was #1 free game in the United States for a while and never got featured. I think that's
did you
like
ever-
one of the only games that ever done that.
Did you ever fly over to Cupertino yourself and go ask them why?
Well, actually, there was a huge sort of a group of applications that were featured called Best Ball Rolling Games, and it wasn't featured there. And I was like, come on, there's dozen applications here, but you know, there is you should do fresh stuff if you want to get featured.
Okay. Well, look, if you were at the if you're at the CES show, you saw that just about every device manufacturer in the world now is cloning Apple's App Store, and they think we need apps on our television set. Ford announced apps in the automobile. There's apps in just about every gizmo that's coming. What would your advice be for a company that's not yet in the apps business? Parting words of advice for companies that are seeking to enter the space. Which platform should they focus on?
Well, first of all, it depends if you're just going to build an app as a company or whether it complements your core business activity. But ultimately, it's about adding value to the consumer. So whatever the device offers that consumer and whatever app you build, it needs to create an experience that's better than how they could replicate the experience on any other medium. If you can do that, people will start using the app on that particular device. If you can't do that, ultimately, you're not going to win.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid we are out of time for today's session. Thank you all very much for your patience as we went through those many changeovers. Thank you, folks, for joining us, Elias and Andrew.